Pak Shikurana coming up in the next 30 minutes. India and Qatar elevate ties to a strategic partnership aimed to double trade to $28 billion in 5 years. President hosts Qatar's Amir at Rashtrapati Bhavan recalls deep ties between two nations. US President Trump says he's more confident of Ukraine peace deal after US-Russia talks, hence meeting with Putin could happen this month itself. Despite Russia's acceptance for NATO forces in Ukraine, Trump says US would not oppose Europe sending peacekeepers to Ukraine. Victory for Team Trump after US judge declines request to temporarily block Elon Musk and DOGE from firing federal employees. Trump fires all Biden-era US attorneys. Pakistan to take on New Zealand in Karachi as it hosts a major ICC cricket tournament in 3 decades as Champions Trophy 2025 kicks off today. And on to the details now. US President Donald Trump says that talks between US and Russian officials in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday were very good and that he's now much more confident of a Ukraine peace deal. Trump spoke for the first time since the US delegation established a working dialogue with Russia about Ukraine during talks in Riyadh on Tuesday. Trump said he would probably meet with Putin before the end of the month but did not elaborate. Trump increased pressure on Zelensky to hold elections, echoing one of Moscow's key demands. He brushed aside Ukraine's concern about being left out of the meeting, saying Kyiv could have made a peace deal with Russia 3 years ago.
And I'm very disappointed. I hear that, they're upset about not having a seat. Well, they've had a seat for 3 years and a long time before that. This could have been settled very easily. Just a half-baked negotiator could have settled this years ago without the loss of much land, very little land, without the loss of any lives, and without the loss of cities that are just laying on their side.
And US and Russia agreed to cooperate on ending Ukraine conflict. Landmark Riyadh talks mark a US foreign policy shift under President Trump. A new era of cooperation may emerge. To talk more on this, we are joined by Igor Pishkunov from Russia Today TV. Well, Igor, can you share more insights on the Riyadh meeting's outcomes and what can we expect moving forward?
It's quite complicated. Maybe even difficult to describe. It was a very long day here in Saudi Arabia. The talks lasted for 4.5 hours and quite a lot came out of them. I have to say that the Saudis made quite an effort to prevent any speculation or leaks from happening as the talks still went on. So then we were basically bombarded by all these various statements after the talks ended coming from both sides. But I think the most important thing that happened here in Saudi Arabia is that Russia and the United States were able to make a very important first step towards normalizing their relations. They've agreed to create mechanisms to normalize the work of their diplomatic missions. Regarding the conflict in Ukraine, they agreed to put together high-level teams on each side which will work together to look for a diplomatic, sustainable solution which would be suitable to all sides. And they're even now starting to look beyond the conflict in Ukraine because they're saying that they want to lay the foundation for future projects in investment and economy in all these projects which may emerge after the conflict in Ukraine is done. Judging by what we've heard today from representatives of both sides, it was a serious and optimistic conversation. Just about a week ago, it was so hard to imagine something like this from happening. But then the phone conversation between Presidents Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump took place. And now already we're here in Saudi Arabia. We're looking at Moscow and Washington talking and, most importantly, listening to each other, like Foreign Minister Lavrov said. The Trump's administration approach to not only the conflict in Ukraine, but I guess to the relationship with Russia is quite different from the previous administration. I think it also echoes with Russia's foreign minister's words about listening to each other. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that this is about dialogue, this isn't about monologue. And he also said that any diplomatic success is possible only with concessions made by all sides.
Well, Riyadh marks a diplomatic coup for Moscow, which had been isolated for 3 years under the previous U.S. administration of Joe Biden. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov noted that Russia opposed any deployment of NATO nation troops to Ukraine as part of an eventual ceasefire. Moscow has long called for the withdrawal of NATO forces from Eastern Europe, viewing the alliance as an existential threat on its flank. Russia sketched out some of its perspectives on future talks, arguing that settling the war required a reorganization of Europe's defense agreements. European allies publicly diverged this week over whether they would be open to sending truce peacekeepers to Ukraine. Though on Tuesday, Trump said he would not oppose Europeans if they want to send peacekeeping troops to Ukraine, adding that the United States would not have to contribute.
If they want to do that, that's great. I'm all for it. If they want to do that, I think that'd be fine. I mean, I know France has mentioned it, others have mentioned it, UK has mentioned it, but if we have a peace deal, I think having troops over there from the standpoint of Europe, we won't have to put any over there because, we're very far away. But having troops over there would be fine. I would not object to it at all.
Well, French President Emmanuel Macron on Tuesday announced that he will host another meeting on Ukraine after the talks between the new U.S. administration and Russia. In an interview with French regional newspapers, Macron again appeared open to the idea of sending troops to Ukraine, but emphasized this could take place only in the most limited fashion and away from conflict zones. He said Paris was not preparing to send ground troops, but was considering with its ally Britain sending experts or even troops in limited terms outside any conflict zone. Macron also evoked the idea of deciding within the framework of the negotiations to have under a United Nations mandate a peacekeeping operation which would be held along the front line. He said the new talks would take place on Wednesday with several European and non-European states. His wide-ranging comments came after U.S. President Trump stunned Europe by upending U.S. policy with the resumption of diplomacy with the Kremlin aimed at agreeing an end to the conflict. And Donald Trump's administration scored a victory when a judge ruled in its favor in a challenge by Democratic attorney generals from a group of states to the authority of the Republican president's chief government cost-cutter, Elon Musk. Washington-based U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan denied their request for an order barring billionaire Tesla CEO Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, from accessing computer systems at federal agencies or directing firing of government workers while the litigation plays out. The Attorney General argued that their ability to carry out educational and other programs were at risk. They accused Musk's team of unlawfully accessing data at federal agencies and directing a purge of 2.3 million strong federal workforce. The lawsuit was filed by more than a dozen states, announced by State Attorney General from New Mexico, Michigan, and Arizona. DOGE was formed by Trump. It has swept through federal agencies, slashing thousands of jobs and dismantling various programs since Trump returned to office last month and put Musk in charge of rooting out what they see as wasteful spending as part of the president's dramatic overhaul of the government. And US President Donald Trump announced his plans to impose auto tariffs in the neighborhood of 25% and similar duties on semiconductors and pharmaceutical imports, the latest in a series of measures threatening to upend international trade. On Friday, Trump said levies on automobiles would come as soon as April 2nd, the day after members of his cabinet are due to deliver reports to him outlining options for a range of import duties as he seeks to reshape global trade. Trump has long pointed to what he calls unfair treatment of U.S. automotive exports in foreign markets. Since his inauguration 4 weeks ago, Trump has imposed a 10% tariff on all imports from China, on top of the existing levies over China's failure to halt fentanyl trafficking. He also announced and then delayed for a month 25% tariffs on goods from Mexico and non-energy imports from Canada. And US President Donald Trump has instructed the Justice Department to terminate all remaining Biden-era US attorneys, asserting that the department had been politicized like never before. Trump on Truth Social posted that we must clean house immediately and restore confidence. America's golden age must have a fair justice system that begins today. Last week, the White House sent termination notices to several U.S. attorneys around the country who had been appointed by Democratic former President Joe Biden. On Monday, several U.S. attorneys appointed by Biden announced they were stepping down. Others left the government last week. And Brazil's former president, Jair Bolsonaro, was charged in a plot to overturn his 2022 election loss, the office of the country's top prosecutor announced in a legal document released on Tuesday. General Prosecutor Paulo Gonet filed the charges against the former far-right leader, along with a few of his former ministers, to Brazil's Supreme Court after the federal police launched accusations of the plot last November. The charges represent a fresh blow for Bolsonaro that further complicates his already narrow hopes of a political comeback. Bolsonaro, a former army captain, has repeatedly denied breaking any laws and calls allegations against him a witch hunt by his political opponents. His defense lawyers did not immediately respond to a request for comment outside normal business hours. And Pope Francis has been diagnosed with double pneumonia after further tests showed a continuing complex medical situation. Dozens of faithful prayed for Pope Francis' recovery outside Rome's Gemelli Hospital. Francis has been suffering from a respiratory infection for more than a week and was admitted to Rome's Gemelli Hospital on February 14th. He's especially prone to lung infections because as a young adult, he developed pleurisy and had part of one lung removed. Well, the International Atomic Energy Agency Chief Rafael Grossi will visit Japan's Fukushima Daiichi plant on Wednesday. The UN nuclear watchdog chief, who arrived in Japan on Tuesday, will visit storage facilities for vast quantities of soil contaminated in the 2011 Fukushima disaster for the first time. He'll also be shown some of the 13 million cubic meters of soil and 300,000 cubic meters of ash from incinerated organic material. Japan plans to recycle roughly 75% of the removed soil, the portion found to have low radioactivity levels. If this material is confirmed safe, the government wants to use it for building embankments for roads and railway, among other projects. The remaining soil will be disposed of outside Fukushima region ahead of the 2045 deadline. The UN nuclear watchdog is monitoring the decades-long process to decommission the Fukushima Daiichi plant, which went into meltdown after being hit by a tsunami, the worst nuclear disaster since Chernobyl. And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. Former British Premier Rishi Sunak and family met Prime Minister Modi, praised as great friend of India during visit to Delhi. Ganesh Kumar to take over as new Chief Election Commissioner on February 19th. And over 55 crore devotees taken the holy dip at Triveni Sangam till now at Maha Kumbh 2025 in Prayagraj.
This week on Defence Dynamics, India navigates high-stakes global defence deals. Modi's France visit unlocks strategic technology, so what is it for India's fighter jets? Trump offers F-35 stealth fighters. Are they the game changer or geopolitical dilemma? The world leaders debate AI weapons. Can the regulations keep the lethal innovation in check? And India's Raksha Kavach, how it fortifies national security against modern threats. Catch it all this Wednesday at 8 p.m. IST only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Lipakshi Khuran, and moving on. Amir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani's visit to India is aimed at strengthening growing partnership between the two nations. Narendra Modi's Middle East outreach has marked a significant transformation in India's foreign policy, characterized by proactive engagement, strategic partnerships and diversified cooperation. Our next report by Jessica Taneja brings you more.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi breaking protocol to personally receive the Amir of Qatar as he touched down in New Delhi for his state visit. The warm gesture by the Indian Prime Minister highlighted the growing ties between New Delhi and Doha. The high-profile visit of Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani highlights the strengthening ties between India and Qatar, two nations bound by history, trade and diplomacy. On the second day of his two-day visit, the Amir of Qatar, Tamim, received the Guard of Honor and a ceremonial welcome in the forecourt of the Rashtrapati Bhavan on Tuesday. He was received by President Draupadi Murmu and Prime Minister Narendra Modi along with senior ministers from the government.
His Highness the Amir of Qatar is accompanied by a high-level delegation comprising ministers, senior officials and business leaders. The dignitaries who are accompanying His Highness include Qatar's Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, His Excellency Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani, as well as the Ministers of Commerce and Industry, Energy, Electronics and Information Technology, Labour, and the Minister of State for Foreign Trade.
Prime Minister Modi held a bilateral meeting with the Emir at Hyderabad House in New Delhi. India and Qatar elevated their ties to strategic partnership as the two sides signed MOU, including on double tax avoidance and prevention of fiscal evasions with respect to taxes on income. With bilateral trade surpassing $14 billion in 2023-24, Qatar remains India's largest supplier of liquid natural gas, fueling the country's growing energy needs. In return, India exports a range of goods from food and textiles to engineering products. This visit is expected to pave the way for new agreements, deepening this economic partnership.
The partnership, which rests on the foundation of trust, trade, and tradition. We have a very strong historical legacy, starting right from the old times when we had the Silk Route. But today, we live in a new world, a new age, where we are rewriting the terms of trade. We are rewriting the way business will be conducted. In fact, we are creating new Silk Age routes, whether it's the IMEC, whether it's the newer technologies that we are engaged with.
Qatar's Minister of State for Foreign Trade Affairs, Dr. Ahmed bin Mohammed Al Saeed, highlighted the strong partnership between India and Qatar during Amir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani's visit. He emphasized collaboration in trade, technology and investment, particularly in non-oil sectors, to strengthen bilateral ties.
The world today is changing dramatically in terms of trade and business, the apply of technology and AI. Qatar also enhancing the landscape of attractiveness of investment. We are welcoming Indian business people. We are encouraging our business society, government and public sector to invest more in India and to create more partnership.
But beyond trade, defense and security cooperation, the two nations share intelligence on counterterrorism, and India regularly participates in Qatar's maritime defense exhibitions. Recent agreements have bolstered cooperation in cybersecurity, port management, and skill development. Another key pillar of this relationship is the Indian diaspora. Over 800,000 Indians live and work in Qatar, contributing to its development. Their welfare remains a priority in bilateral talks. Jessica Taneja's report for DD India.
Well, President Draupadi Murmu hailed India-Qatar ties, which she said are reflected even in food, while addressing a dinner hosted by the Rashtrapati Bhavan in honor of Amir of the State of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani's visit to India.
महामहिम, आपकी ये यात्रा हमारी ऐतिहासिक संबंधों और मैत्री में एक महत्वपूर्ण पड़ाव है। दोनों देशों के बीच विशेष संबंध रहे हैं जो बेहद घनिष्ठ और जीवंत है। पारंपरिक जोलियानों, जिन्हें ढो के रूप में जाना जाता है, न परंपराएं, वस्तुएं, विचारों और सांस्कृतिक नीतियों के आदान प्रदान द्वारा सदियों से दोनों देशों को आपस में जोड़े रखा है। कतार में रहने वाले भारतीय समुदाय ने कतार को अपना दूसरा घर बना लिया है और वे स्थानीय समाज में सरलता से घुल मिल गए हैं। मैं इन मेज़बानी और उनकी इतनी अच्छी देखभाल के लिए आपकी और कतार के लोगों के हृदय से आभारी हूँ।
And former British Premier Rishi Sunak and his family on Tuesday called on Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the national capital. Prime Minister Narendra Modi praised Sunak as a great friend of India. Sharing pictures on social media platform X, Prime Minister said, and I quote, "It was a delight to meet former UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his family. We had a wonderful conversation on many subjects. Sunak is a great friend of India and is passionate about even stronger India-UK ties." Unquote. Sunak was accompanied by his mother-in-law Sudha Murthy, an author, and Rajya Sabha MP and other family members. The former UK Prime Minister also met Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, and the two discussed potential new avenues to strengthen market-based financial ties and drive economic growth. The Finance Minister stressed the importance of leveraging the Commonwealth to bring issues of mutual interest to the G7 agenda for the benefit of the Global South. And Gyanesh Kumar will take charge as the Chief Election Commissioner of India on Wednesday. Gyanesh Kumar is the first CEC to be appointed under the new law on the appointment of the members of the Election Commission. Gyanesh Kumar took over as Election Commissioner in the Election Commission of India on 15th March 2024. He's a 1988 batch Kerala cadre office of the Indian Administrative Service. As an IAS, Kumar has served departments including Finance Resources, Fast Track Projects, PWD. Gyanesh Kumar has previously worked as the Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Defence, Joint Secretary and Additional Secretary in the Ministry of Home Affairs, Secretary in the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs and Secretary in the Ministry of Cooperation. And now to all the latest from the Maha Kumbh, the largest gathering of humans anywhere on the planet. Well, the Maha Kumbh 2025 in Prayagraj has drawn an overwhelming number of devotees to the sacred Triveni Sangam, the confluence of Ganga, Yamuna and Saraswati rivers. Displaying unwavering faith and devotion, more than 55 crore pilgrims have already taken the holy dip, seeking spiritual purification and blessings. Even after the completion of the three main Amrit Snans, Makar Sankranti, Mauni Amavasya and Basant Panchami, the enthusiasm of pilgrims remains undiminished. People from across India and the world continue to arrive daily, making Maha Kumbh a global spiritual spectacle. While the Maha Kumbh 2025 is not just a religious gathering, but a reflection of the rich spiritual heritage and enduring faith of the millions. As the sacred waters of the Triveni Sangam witness history, the event continues to inspire devotion, unity and cultural pride. And on to some sports news now. The 2025 Champions Trophy will start off with host and defending champions Pakistan facing New Zealand at the National Stadium in Karachi. Pakistan is all set to host its first major cricket tournament in nearly 3 decades as the tournament kicks off. The two sides faced each other just days earlier in the final of a tri-series tournament that ended up being a dry run for this very event. Judging by the form exhibited by the two sides in that match and that series overall, New Zealand can feel very good about their chances indeed. Pakistan, on the other hand, have a few worries to deal with, as one defeat in the Champions Trophy is enough for a side's chances of progression to plummet. Well, that's all for this edition of DD India Live. Well, let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available in both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks on DD India. I'm Lepakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.